Should you use Blender or Spline for creating 3D graphics on websites? Blender was created in 1998 as an animation tool, whereas Spline was created in 2021 to be a 3D web renderer. So there's quite an age difference, but that doesn't automatically mean that the newer software is better. So like I said, Spline is the web renderer out of these two options, but Blender can also use third-party tools like Three.js and other libraries to add the 3D graphics to websites. So let's talk about when to use which one and how they can be used in your process for creating 3D on the web. So Blender is great for creating PNGs, JPEGs, and even image sequences and videos that can be added to websites. Spline is great for taking those 3D graphics and actually rendering those out on the websites. The original context for why Blender was created was more of a film context, and so it's trying to replicate real camera and world settings, whereas Spline is a lot more useful in the context of actual websites. And again, you might think that just makes Spline the better tool. However, Blender can do some things that Spline isn't necessarily great at. I will add, Spline is getting better every single day and they're continuing to add new features, but I still find Blender to be more useful in some cases than Spline. So here's my process for creating 3D graphics on websites. If I'm just trying to create an image that I can upload as a PNG or a JPEG, I'm going to use Blender, no question about it. Blender is the better tool. If I'm trying to create a video, so say I'm trying to add a background video to a Webflow website, I'm just going to use Blender because I know the software better, and it also has a lot more customization that can be added that can't yet be done in Spline. Hey guys, I just released a Blender course teaching you how to create 3D graphics for your websites. If you want to check it out, click the link in the description. Now, if I'm trying to add a Spline 3D scene, I might actually still use Blender as part of the process. It just depends on how complex of a scene I'm trying to put together. Blender can be really useful for modeling out 3D models and then exporting them as FBX or OBJ files. Those are just file types, formats, and then uploading those into a Spline 3D scene. And then I can add actual interactions, say in the integration with a Webflow website. And so these tools really can actually work together very well. Technically, you could just hop into Spline and create everything in Spline, but I prefer to use Blender just because it has some better tools that Spline doesn't yet have. So you technically can't take a Blender 3D scene and just render it on a website. There's not really a tool to be able to do that. There are some third-party tools that allow you to kind of take a Blender scene and upload it to those tools, but in all honesty, they slow down websites and they're not very intuitive, which is why Spline is the better option for actually rendering out those websites. You could technically take a Blender 3D scene and you could use a 3D library like Three.js and showcase that scene through that, but again, you're still going to have to create that scene using that 3D library because you can't always take the materials one-to-one in a Blender 3D scene and render them on the web because they're different web renderers. You can use whichever one you want. I personally prefer to use both, and I think if you have both in your toolbox, you're going to be a lot more valuable as a web designer or Webflow developer. If you like this video, let me know. We'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.